We good? So, my name's Chris Evans. I'm the Vice President and Country Manager of Intuit QuickBooks in the UK, and I'm delighted to be here and introduce the one and only Matt Rizzle. So Matt is the co-founder and former CEO of TSheets. And TSheets is a company that Intuit acquired over a year ago. And we're going to ask Matt some questions to really understand his experience on forging a successful path to acquisition. So Matt, how you doing, man?
Good, great to see you. I'm in London, baby. God, you guys have the most beautiful city. Oh my gosh. Like seriously, it is so awesome to be here. And I'm curious, so how many, typically I'm thinking we're talking to a bunch of founders, right, that are out there doing the deal, like they're grinding, they're doing the real grind. Curious, how many people here would like to sell their company for north of or near of $340 million? We're talking to the right crowd.
We've got the right crowd. So Matt, thank you so much for taking your time and flying over. We've only got about 25 minutes, so you good if we cut to the chase?
Let's do it.
We'll do it, man. So take us all the way back.
That doesn't mean you're going to cut me.
I'm not going to cut you.
Good.
No,
okay.
That's fine. I'm going to take you all the way back to when you started TSheets. Yeah. Take us to the start of that journey.
So TSheets got started. I owned a company prior to TSheets, and it was a small little tiny company. We had 35 employees in 4 locations. And one day we realized we needed a time tracking system because we had one of our employees that did a little time card fudging. Well, I thought it'd be an easy problem to solve. Now this was 2005, back before software as a service was even a word. And I said, hey, we needed a time tracking system. I went to Office Depot and different places, nothing existed. Went to Google, searched for it, nothing existed. So I called my buddy up and I said, hey, can you build me this version of a time tracking system where I can sit at any one of my 4 offices and I can see all of my employees, what they're doing at any of my locations? And he's like, oh yeah, sure. So he built me this basic deal, and my bookkeeper processed our first payroll. And she looked at me, she said, you just saved $2,400 on your first payroll. Can you sell this? And I said, I don't know. So I called Brandon up, my soon-to-be co-founder. I said, Brandon, can we sell this? And he said, hell yeah. And so that's how TSheets got started.
So take us back to the problem. What was done before TSheets? So how's time tracking done?
So, I mean, it still is. So in the US, still 50%, like today, what is it, 2019, right? Today, 50% of all small businesses still use paper and spreadsheets to track employee time when they come to the office. And so then it was even more prolific.
Hands up, who uses paper, spreadsheets, anyone? We got a few.
Still, this is a tech, yeah, it's crazy.
And then how did you quantify that time save, the value, so that $2,400, how was that quantified? I mean, what did you specifically do to kind of save that time? Take us a little bit, give us a little bit more insight into that.
So on average, I mean, and I really, we had a great team.
Yeah.
And on average, employees don't think that they're trying to steal by any means at all. What they're trying to do is they're just giving themselves the benefit of the doubt. Here's the problem. Is that when they go to clock in, it's like, oh, I show up at 8:10, and I write down what time? 8 o'clock, right? And then it's like kind of time for lunch, and so over time that just adds up really quickly. And you know, we were a small business, super tight margins, and so $2,400 was a big deal.
And take us through the team. So how did you grow the team, and then what did you look for in terms of hiring people in?
So you know, what's so interesting is, you know, TSheets is headquartered. Well, we were headquartered, now we're still, our company, our division is there, in Boise, Idaho. Does anybody know where Boise, Idaho even is? Like,
oh yeah, you go.
Has somebody been there? Come on, somebody, all right, I love it. So in Boise, Idaho, and people would ask me like, what are you doing, Rizzle? I mean, Boise, Idaho, it would be like going to the rural part of the UK and starting a software company. What is interesting about that is that it turned out to be a super big competitive advantage, because in Silicon Valley, the war for talent is so intense. And in Boise, a sexy startup is kind of unique a little bit. And so we were able to literally recruit. We doubled from 2011 until 2018. We doubled our workforce every single year up to 300 employees.
Wow.
And guess what our recruiting budget was? Oh, so yeah, 0. Somebody did it for me. 0. Like, talk about a huge competitive advantage.
And what did you look for in terms of the people that you're bringing in? Because you're passionate, you've got a vision, you've got goals. Is there anything particular you were looking for?
Well, at first, like when you first started, we were looking for a heartbeat. Yeah. Like, it was super important that they were, that was funny. Okay, maybe I'm not funny, but in the UK, so like the very first thing, they just had to breathe. Like, we just needed a warm body that could actually, like, you know, talk.
Yeah.
And then we got picky over time. But really, we had this theory where we were always recruiting. If I would go to a restaurant or if I would go to somebody else's company, I mean, I would always be looking for top talent. And I would encourage my entire team, our best recruiters, seriously, we never had a recruiting staff. Our best recruiters were our employees. And they were also our best filters for our culture. It was amazing because what they would do is they'd be, hey, look, I was at a party this weekend and I was telling everybody how much I love my job. And by the way, Bobby is going to come apply. And let me tell you, please, if you want to give Bobby an interview, but I don't know if Bobby's all that great for this job. And they were a great, like, culture filter. And they would be like, but Sally's going to apply. And I tell you, Sally is just awesome. And so it just was this incredibly baked in recruiting staff.
And you touched on, you used the word a few times, culture. What culture did you create, and how did you create that culture?
You know, it's so important, and I know you've created one here too, Chris. I think culture trumps strategy every single time. And I believe that to the core of my soul, because you can have a really great strategy, but if you have a terrible culture, there's no way that you can overcome all the obstacles that are going to be thrown at you when you're a founder. But just the reverse, you can kind of have a crappy strategy and a really good and really awesome culture, and it can absorb all the punches. It can mold and move, and it's willing to do anything. So I think it's super important. And two things, like, one, I think it's crazy how some people create culture, because what they'll do is they'll actually, like, go hire a marketing firm and ask them, like, hey, what kind of culture should I have? That's crazy. Instead, I mean, first of all, the culture has to come from whoever is leading the organization. I mean, it is impossible to have try to create a culture that is different than whoever is leading that organization. And what I do is I encourage people, CEOs who ask all the time, like, how did you create it? Is to be authentic. Because what happens is a CEO or a founder, what they'll do is they'll try to create a culture that they think people will want to be a part of. And what happens is, that's great for like the first 30 days, but after that, you cannot consistently make decisions according to something that's not real, something that's not authentic. However, if it is, it's like real. If you would want that job, if you would want to work there, pretty soon you know how to make decisions according to it. Like, I would want a culture where I work my face off and there's a keg in our lounge. I would want to be in a culture where there's a ping pong table and I can crush everybody. By the way, are there any ping pong players? Uh-oh.
There's a challenge later on this afternoon. Yeah. We're going to do a ping pong challenge.
How did you do it? How did you create the culture here in the UK? By the way, go ahead.
We've gone, so into the UK, we've gone from 30 people when I joined about 9 years ago in Maidenhead to now 226 people. One of the things that was core to us is we really truly live and breathe our values. I think that's first and foremost. But when we're actually hiring, part of our hiring process is we select members of the team to sit on the hiring panel. We don't just look at skills, we actually look at our values as well as part of that. And it's a fun environment. I think you've touched on it. It's, so we have an open office, we have a pool table, we don't have a ping pong table yet, but it's just a great fun environment to work in as well.
Yeah. You'd have a ping pong table because you know it's coming.
Yeah, we've put that away.
Okay.
Because apparently you're good. So,
I would have. Kidding.
So take us back to, in your journey, which is an amazing journey, take us back to what was the most challenging moment? And were there any moments that you nearly walked away?
Well, like as any founder in this room or CEO that's leading a company, I mean, the word startup grind is one of like the best names for an organization ever, because the truth is that it is a grind. And I mean, you have to, it's so easy to be up on stage after you sell your company for a lot of money and stand in front of your team and be like, raw, let's go get them. But the truth is that like founders at nighttime around 11 p.m. when they literally cannot work anymore, they sit on the edge of their bed and they suck their thumbs. And that was me. And that's the truth. And it feels like the world is collapsing around you. And so one of the hardest times when we had 4 go-to-market failures, we completely ran out of money. And you would think that like, you know, the local community would have encouraged us, and I would get things like, Rissel, time tracking? I mean, couldn't you come up with a better idea? And we got just a little bit of publicity. Like somebody wrote a really like a nice article about us online, and we were in the office. If I could have done a backflip, I would have done it. We were celebrating, we were high-fiving, we're like, yeah, we're gonna go. And the comments that we got, I don't know if you guys can relate to this. The comments underneath that were things like this: mobile time tracking, ? Worst idea I've seen today. I've been in business for 40 years. This is certain failure. One of them was like, have you seen the fail blogs? Like, fail? This belongs on the fail blog. Like, it literally kicked us in the gut. And my co-founder and I said, like, we walked outside. I mean, we're almost out of money. We stare up at the sky. We're like, does anybody care about what we do? And we almost shut down our company. Like literally we were a breath away from shutting down our company. Wow. And the next day, I went home and I told my wife, who by the way, just showed up in London about an hour ago. This is my wife and 3 kids. Can you stand up really quickly, say hi? Yes! Yeah. And my mom came to London as well. We're so excited to be here. Yes.
Mom's got to get a round of applause.
Yes. Went home and I told my wife, like, you know what, I think we're gonna shut this thing down. Wow. And we slept on it, and the next day I looked at Brandon and I said, Brandon, as we went in the next morning, I said, what do you think? And he looked at me and he goes, I still believe. I'm like, me too. And so we never asked that question again. We just kept grinding.
Thank you for sharing that. And when you started, what was the goal? Was the goal to actually be acquired? Because let's now focus in on like the acquisition process. Were you like, we're starting this thing and we want to sell it in a few years' time? What was the goal?
No, so at first it was like, how do we survive next month, right? And the truth is that we had zero desire to sell our company, like zero. So we were doubling our business every year. We were doubling our customers. We were doubling our revenue. We had raised $15 million. And guess how much of the $15 million we used? Zero. We were cash flow positive or break even, unheard of. We were crushing all the Silicon Valley companies, and we had no interest. We weren't trying to sell. And our largest partner, Intuit, came to us, and they played their cards really, really well.
Close to the chest, yeah.
Yeah, really well. And they expressed interest in us as an acquisition. And we'd had a lot of inbound interest, and we were just always like, no. But we thought, you know what? You know, our largest partner, we definitely need to have the conversation.
And what was that process?
Brutal. Like, I don't know if any of you guys have been through a big acquisition, but it is not. So one thing, you're a CEO, you're trying to run a company. Turns out that's a pretty tough job as it is, right? And two, then you try to run a process where that is somebody trying to acquire you. And it turns out a process is just that. I mean, my kids are here, so I won't cuss. But it's a process. And it starts off as very a casual conversation. And by the way, another company, even larger than Intuit, at the same exact time, came and tried to acquire us as well. And so we ran 2 processes at the same time. And it started off with, this is how it started off. It's like, this is overly transparent. Hey, Matt, you're our largest partner. By the way, so this is Intuit talking. We're interested in time tracking. I know we're big partners. No, we are all in on time tracking. And We have decided that, typically when something like that happens, it's, either build, partner, or buy. And we've decided partner is not an option. And I'm like, oh, here it comes. They're coming hard. They're gonna write me a big check right now. And they said, so we're, that's either build or buy. And we've decided not to buy you. And I was like, oh. And I said, good, because we're not for sale. And so that's how the process started. And it was an authentic, that was the business side, it wasn't the corp dev side, And so really it was kind of an interesting journey through the whole thing. And really, it's one thing to know your products work together. And we had 6 years of working together. But one of the most important things that we did is that we made sure that the values of our companies aligned over a 6-month period. Yeah. And and today, like most acquisitions aren't very successful. And to say that this is a successful acquisition truly is an understatement. We have grown from 300 employees to 400 employees. Our business continues the trajectory continues to grow and double every year. I mean, it's crazy. And we are integrating our teams successfully inside of Intuit. And so, that's a little bit about the process. Yeah, go ahead.
How did you, so when you got the offer, what was the first thing you did? And then how did you tell the team?
So that's a confusing, So it's funny because it's a little anticlimactic when you get the offer. Because it's typically at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's after days and days of negotiation. It's after you've uploaded something like 600 documents into like a data room, right? And so, I mean, it's a great starting point. But the first time, and actually the other company actually offered first. But the first thing you do is you start going like starstruck a little bit, and it's like imagining, whew, that'd be a big bank account. And then you call then I call my wife, and I'm like, hey, can you imagine? But then you start really thinking through, like, and this is what we did, what is the best thing for the employees? Like, really, is this the best opportunity for the employees? What is the best opportunity for our community? We're the largest employer in our city. Is this the best opportunity? What about our customers? What about our partners? And then what about our shareholders? And so you really have to think through all of the different levels of the stakeholders that are involved with a decision like that. So I'm really fascinated, Chris, because QuickBooks, so one of the coolest things about being acquired, and you go from like a really fast growing division to, I sit next to QuickBooks. So it's like time tracking, payroll, QuickBooks. And in the US, we own 85% of the market share. I mean, like, it is the largest accounting software, growing at like 80% here in the UK. Acquisitions are certainly a part of your plans for the UK. So as you look forward, what are you looking for?
It's a great question. So for those who don't know, we are growing very, very fast in the UK. So we have QuickBooks Online. And if you think about it from a platform standpoint, an average small business self-employed will use about 14 different applications to run their business. So to go back to your build, partner, acquire, we can either focus in and build elements of that ourselves. We have over 1,000 partners that integrate into the platform. We can then work closer with deep integration. Or if there's a customer, a partner that we believe solving a massive problem that we can't solve ourselves, and we believe we can build durable competitive advantage, then we'll look to acquire. So we have a very clear strategy that sits behind that. But our goal is to actually meet the needs for all self-employed and small businesses through the QuickBooks Online platform. So that's where I think the successful track record we've seen is where we've had that deep integration. We know we can solve that problem. That's normally when we'd look to make an acquisition. We also have to factor in the people, the culture, the technology, and how we'd integrate that into the business as well. So we have to be very thoughtful of that as well.
Well, that's really exciting for the UK.
It's massively exciting.
Yes.
It's massively exciting. And T-Sheets is a massive opportunity in the UK as well, so it's super, super exciting. So I think we're, I don't know if that time's correct, but I'm going to ask a couple more questions because I think this audience would love to hear. So first and foremost, you've gone from startup to the CEO to then being acquired. What's it like having a boss quickly?
Ha! I haven't, you haven't had a boss other than a board, right? Since 2003, I think. It's like putting on a new suit. It's like, I don't know how this feels, right? But what's really interesting is Alex Chriss. So Alex Chriss leads the entire small business division at Intuit. So Intuit split up into two different worlds, small business and consumer. And so, Alex and I've known each other for actually close to 10 years. And he has taken, it's hard to lead an entrepreneur, really hard. And he's taken such a great approach, honestly, on leading me, on leading the T-Sheets team, giving us enough autonomy to where we can build and grow and still have our identity. We actually thought the day we were acquired, they were gonna come in with like a crane and a jackhammer to rip our identity off, put Intuit everywhere. And the only thing that they did to our building the day they acquired us is crazy. It blew my mind. Is they came in and they tacked a little vinyl sign on our stairway that said Intuit, powering prosperity. And it was brilliant. Because when you tell 300 people that you're being acquired, everybody has had different experiences with it. And so there's all these fears that come up. And when they saw that, it was still like, we're still who we are. We still have our culture. They still respect everything that we're doing. They want us to accomplish great things. And so that's a long answer, but Alex Chriss has been awesome.
Love that, love that. So final question,
yes.
Otherwise we're going to get booted off stage, I think.
No
So we got startups, we've got entrepreneurs. What's the one bit of advice that you would give someone? Either thinking about starting a business or currently within a startup.
And by the way, I'll be hanging around if you guys have any more questions. I love to talk to entrepreneurs, but one piece of advice is this, and I'd love to hear yours as well. People ask me all the time, like, what's the key to success? Like, what do you really think is the secret to success? And I will tell you, I don't think that there is a single key. And you are not sitting where you are right now in this room on, what is the date today? June 6th at 10:30 in the morning, because of one decision. You're sitting where you are today because of millions of tiny little decisions that you make on a daily basis. And specifically, like today, think about all the different things you could have chosen other than sitting right here. And so my encouragement is be disciplined in making all of those million tiny little decisions, and great things will happen. What about you?
Love that. So it is a great question. Let me think. There's two. Can I give two answers? First one is we talk about customer obsession and we talk about that customer problem. So Matt's example, staying laser focused on time tracking, that real customer problem. We see a lot of startups, and we do it in our business, where you focus on that problem and you go too broad quickly. Just stay that narrow focus and solve that problem better than anyone else can. And then, we have over 5.7 million small businesses in the UK, 600,000 new startups a year. And what I'll tell you is 50% will fail within the first 5 years. The number one reason for small business failure is cash flow. So really understand your cash flow, use digital solutions, drive efficiency, but that is the most important thing. So there'll be my 2 pearls of wisdom to the audience.
That is awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for having me on stage. Thank you guys so much for hosting us in London. God, it's great to be here with all of you.
So Matt, you're an inspiration. Thank you so much. A round of applause, please. Thank you. Awesome, man. Thank you.
Hope you like the surprise, man.